I'm so excited for our presentation today. I'm so excited. We are ending our celebration of Black History Month, which I'm so impressed with all of the projects that I'm seeing around school. We're going to start because I can't sing. I'm going to hand it over to our lovely music teachers for Lift Every Voice and Sing. You guys are lucky because growing up, I had to learn all three verses. Every Sunday, I had to sing all three verses. You're only going to sing the first verse, but I'm not going to lead it. So I'm going to follow Mrs. Cole.
Good morning. Well, we wanted to say, Mrs. Evans, I didn't. Wait. Oh, that's so much better. Thank you. So we talked about it in lots of our classes that we know this is one of your favorite songs. And your time here has been so wonderful for all of us. So we would like to dedicate this song and our singing to you today. So thank you for being here today. You're a shining bright star every day. I really appreciate it. Okay, boys and girls, let's put our best, most respectful behavior on that we practiced. Oh, absolutely not. Can we try that again? Wow. I know we can do better than that because we practiced a lot in our classroom. And every time we made sound, we sat back down and we tried again. I know that we can stand up and show our respect for this song, each other, and Miss Evans today. Let's try again. Thank you.
Every voice and sing till the heaven ring with the harmony of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let every sound black as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun over the day begun. Let us march on till victory is won.
Make sure we're ready. Mr. Myers, can you dim the lights just a little bit because it's going to be a quick trailer. We have the honor and privilege of having Miss Westbrook Griffin here today. If you look over, you see who she's standing next to? So, yes, she is Mr. Henry's mom. As equally as important, maybe being Mr. Henry's mom is the most important, but as equally as important, she's a civil rights icon. So first, I'm gonna let her introduce herself, but before that, she has a documentary about her story. And we're gonna play, it's a quick, I think maybe 45 seconds, just to give you an introduction. And then she's gonna come up and share some of her story, and then we're gonna have some questions. You are in the presence of royalty. There's books about her. She's written a book. And I don't know what else she can do. She sat down at the piano and started playing right from here. She has a movie coming out, so you should feel honored to have her here. But before we start, I'm going to play just a quick trailer.
Lulu and the Girls of America's Georgia, 1963, is an original and untold story of young people, some barely out of elementary school, answering the call for freedom. Her name is Lulu Westbrook Griffin. I, along with my brother James Westbrook, my niece Gloria Breedlove, and other young people in our small town of Americus, Georgia, challenged the Jim Crow laws and protested against racism. This is a story of young people who risked their lives to be free. It is a universal story young and old must see. It is a story relevant today, 40 years later.
Keep on walking, keep on talking, Martin.
So as she comes up, let's give her a big round of applause.
Good morning, good morning. So many babies in the house. First of all, I want to introduce myself. I'm Lulu Westbrook Griffin, Aaron's mother. This is a privilege, really, to be in your midst this morning. I want to thank your principal here, Mrs. Adams, and all the teachers or whomever else collaborated to have me here. And children, I want to thank you for giving me a little bit of your undivided attention. The trailer you just saw about Lulu and the Girls of Americas, Georgia, that is a documentary of myself and other young kids that took the challenge of the Jim Crow laws in the 60s where I lived. Those days were very bleak. The laws was very harmful, and they were very blatant. They was written in handwriting, and some of them was over the water fountain, as you saw in the trailer. Some of them was over the hospital rooms that was separating color and white. That was the terminology of our identity. We were called Negroes, and the word Negro is a black Spanish name. That's a word for black in Spanish. But we was always called the N-word, which a lot of you probably have heard that. But anyways, I was about, I believe I was 8 years old, maybe 9, when I joined the mass meetings. I would go to the church, which was our refuge, where we had the meetings, where we felt safe from the Ku Klux Klan and the white supremacist people and the separatists that wanted to harm us. Although we were very intelligent kids and we knew how to read, but these blatant separation or segregation was very prevalent, and they kept us as 2/5 of the citizens. By the time I was 10 years old, I had learned how to make play cards, the one we carried to protest. I had learned all the freedom songs. I had taken oath of nonviolence because this was a very serious commitment in 1960s civil rights movement. I was arrested at the age of 12 for protesting against segregation. We had gone to a mass meeting in my hometown of Americus, Georgia, and we were told that we may not even come back home to our parents. We were kids that did not just walk out of the yard without letting your parents know where you were. They had to know where we were at all times, because during that time, those days were very, very turbulent. Anyways, I had gone to a mass meeting. We decided we were gonna go to the library, to the Martin Theater, which was the only theater in town that did not allow people of color to go in. And if you did go in the theater, you would go through the side door and you would sit in the balcony. You weren't allowed to sit in the lower part of the theater because that was given to white people. Every day we was faced with challenges of not being able to get on a bus. And if you did get on the bus with your 10 cents, you got on at the front of the bus, and you would get off the bus, and you would walk back to the rear of the bus, and you would re-enter the bus. The front part of the bus and the seats was for white people, because colored people were not allowed to sit with them. And depending on the driver, he would not even stop sometime to pick you up. We were not allowed to go to the playgrounds. We could not play with white kids because the Jim Crow laws had decided that we were 2/5 of a citizen. Our social status was very bad. Therefore, as a young girl, I had learned all the things I needed to know about the mass meeting and the movement. Dr. Reverend Martin Luther King was our leader. He had a philosophy of nonviolence. In order to join the mass meetings and join the marches, you had to take an oath of nonviolence. That meant that if you marching down the street with your signs protesting those laws, and bystanders would pick up a brick or a can or whatever, and they would throw in the group, you had to continue to walk on. You could not fight back. Our way of fighting was with love and the philosophy that we was taught. You don't win your enemies by fighting back. You win your enemies with love. By the time, as I said, I was 12 years old when I had walked through a march with a lot of school kids. Some of them was as young as 9, 8, 10, all the way up to college students. And I remember this day that I had walked in a group. We had self-appointed guardians, Ku Klux Klans, police officers, dogs, billy clubs, water hose, everything they can do to us to keep us from furthering our marches. But I remember that very day that I was taken off the street, and I was cast in a padded wagon by my hand and my feet. They took me by my feet and by my hand, and they just swung us over into a padded wagon and threw us in the back of this bus-like wagon with no windows. They took a bunch of us kids down to the Americus, Georgia jail. We didn't know where we was going, but some of us was excited. And as we got to the jail, we could see all these people standing there, which was white supremacist groups, and they were calling us the N-word. They were using racial slurs. They did not want us to live. But in that whole scenario of being arrested, they took us to a place called Leesburg, Georgia, where they took me and 32 other young girls. This place was an abandoned stockade that had bars on the window, the glasses were broken, and they cast us into this place, and we was there for 45 days without our parents knowing where we were. We were sleeping on a cold, hard concrete floor. There was a shower head that leaked warm water. There was a broken down toilet that we had to use. We did not have blankets. We did not have beds. We did not have those amenities and those things that we normally are used to cleaning ourselves with soap and water. This shower head dripped warm water, and every day we would have to drink from the shower head. We were given a half raw hamburger every day. The meat, you break the meat open, and it would be half raw. It was always served on a hard bun, not like McDonald's or Burger King. It was in a cardboard box with no wrapper around it. And we stayed in that stockade for 45 days. By that time, we was having aches and pains from sleeping on the hard concrete floor. Someone threw a snake in on us, a big snake, rattlesnake in Georgia. If you ever been there, you see the snake the size of them. And at night, the element would be hot because of July. We would have mosquitoes and cockroaches and all kind of bugs coming in on us at night. And we was wretched. We had been trained how to stand the test of time in the event that we got arrested, but we did not know that we would be taken from our home to another little town and incarcerated in an old abandoned stockade that had been there since the war, 1812. During the stockade stay, we had scrapes and bruises. We cried, we prayed. Thank God that our parents had taught us the Bible and encouraged us to have faith and to pray. We had learned how to get along because most of us was in the same school. But during that time of my stay in the stockade, I had bouts of crying every day because I was more concerned about what my mother was going through than what I was going through, because she had no idea where I was. And we did that because of the signs that were visible, the hatred, and all the blatant signs that would say, you are not allowed in the front door. There's always a white hand painted that would guide us to the back of any building we went in. We was told that we were animals. We should go back to Africa. And I was a young girl, but I was able to read. And I understood that we had to make a change. We had to change the Jim Crow laws because the older people, that my parents and other people, they were living very passive lives. They wouldn't fight, they wouldn't say anything because it worked for the white man. But that was a generation of young people that was very gung-ho, like myself and a lot of the students, that we decided we were going to change the system. So we were ready to change the system by giving up our freedom. Even though we was traumatized from staying in the stockade, we had scrapes and bruises from laying on the cold concrete floor. We had earaches. There was girls in there starting to grow a little bit with their hygiene, and it was very wretched. It was a very wretched time. We had no idea that we would be there 45 days, but when we did release, when we were released from the stockade, I remember this young white guy who was a Jewish student. He came to the back bars of the window with a small camera. He did not have the kind that we have now. He had the analog camera that he was snapping pictures, and we ran to the bars, and we were trying to tell him who we were. My name is Lulu, Kara, Gloria. We all would gather up to the window, and he said, I didn't come to take pictures of you girls, but I came to take pictures of the condition of the place and how you was living. Very inhumane. This young colored boy had told them, I knew where these girls were held. This is what I found out later. But I say after about 3 weeks of the pictures being taken, my school had begun. We had no idea how long we was gonna be there. But eventually, we was released from the stockade. Robert Kennedy federalized National Guards to open up the jails and let all the kids go home. It wasn't just the stockade, but kids was in jail all over. A lot of things I learned after I got a little older, what was going on the outside, who was responsible for my release. We could not act as though we was afraid because that's the way we lived. We had to stand up for what we believed in, and it had to begin with each one of us. We were ready to change the Jim Crow laws so that kids like you and kids coming after us will have a better way of educating themselves. You can live where you want to live. You can go to school. You can vote. Even though we went through a lot of traumatizing times to get this work done. I was a kid. Not just me. There was many school kids involved. We had set the record for turning these laws and desegregating segregation. But I did get out, and we went right to school because school had begun. But when we got out, because of the laws, they took all of us kids to the health department, and we got a shot in the arm with the same needle. And there was no one we could tell because we had no legal representation. So we did have to return to school. At the same time, August of that year, the March on Washington was going on. That's the march we should have been in. But we had heard about the girls that were bombed in the church. We had heard about Medgar Evers, how he was assassinated. There was a lot of things going on with us young kids. But we maintained what we knew to be right. Our civil rights was taken from us, and we're the one that made the change. So I'm gonna stop right there because my story is very long. And if anybody have a question, maybe I can fill in what I'm talking about, okay? Does anyone have any?
One of the questions that we had from some students, I don't know for sure because they just submitted it, it said, after you and these young ladies were back home, what was the return to school like?
What was the question?
After you and the ladies were back home, what was the return to school like?
Well, who are you gonna tell when you go back to school? Your parents knew what was going on. Everybody in the town knew we was being held captive. Our teachers was our only hope away from school because we was all in one room, like 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade school was in one room. One teacher taught 3 grade levels of school. So what it was like, we did a lot of crying. We had bouts of crying. We were sick. We hadn't seen doctors. We had scrapes and bruises. And the only thing for me, I can't even speak for anyone else, only thing that really happened to me, I had nightmares until I was 26 years old. And the nightmares came from my experience in the stockade. So it was very traumatizing. I lost my innocence, matter of fact. Anyone?
What happened when you got home? Was your mom there or your parents there?
After you got home, was your mom there?
Oh,
Your
yeah,
parents there to help you?
Oh, my mother, my father, I had a stepfather. My biological father died when I was a 2-year-old. But they met us at the health department and brought us home. My mother and I fell together and cried because I never had been out of her home without her permission. Yes. Okay. Gotta speak up, huh?
When you were in the stockade, will you and the other boys all in the same cell?
Yes. Did you guys hear his question? Yeah, we was in the same cell. We was on the floor. We didn't have any mattresses or blankets or beds. We was all huddled around. Yes, young lady.
How did you learn all those things? How did you learn all those things? Like the ways to be.
Oh, I was going to school. And we was in math meeting. We went off. We took a non-violent vote. They would tell us,
Right back up, Lulu.
okay. They would tell us when we protest, we had to be courteous, we had to be kind, we couldn't be mean. We had to show our enemies love rather than hate. So I learned all that from living there. The whole scenario was my lifestyle. Yes, young lady. Okay, sort of. That's why I don't like brown beef today, but they brought eggs, whatever, you make it up with the water, the powdered eggs, and wasn't a very good way to eat.
I'm gonna get some from the back. Katie,
Okay, somebody,
go ahead, Katie. Nice and loud. Kayla, your twin is right in front of you, sorry. The shot, what kind of shot was it? When you guys all got the same shot? Was it a shot to, what kind of shot was it?
well, it was the one that you take before you do, I guess it was like a tetanus shot or whatever type of shot you take before you get into school.
A vaccination.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm gonna go in the back too, Lulu. So we'll get them in the front. Hold on, let me get Nathan, so I'm gonna get it back. Nathan,
What's the movie rated?
what is the movie rated? Is it PG or rated R?
What movie?
The movie about you.
It hasn't been made yet. It's just in the process of being made through MGM and Universal Studios.
But the documentary is out.
But the documentary that you saw is a 90-minute one. That was a 3-minute trailer, and that depicts what we were going through. Some of it show a little bit about the stockade. Even the stockade is in the documentary. If by any chance one of your teachers, Eric, somebody would have me to do an audience, I'd bring it in and show the whole school. Okay?
Go ahead, Finn, and then I'll come over here.
How long did it take for you to master reading? Like, be really good at reading?
How long did it take me to read? Well, we spread at home. I had all older brothers and sisters, and we all read and learned how to read at home. And we had books, but we couldn't go in the library.
Did you ever meet Dr. Luther King Jr.?
I did.
The question was, did you ever meet Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.? I'm gonna come over here, Lulu, if that's okay. Serena?
He came to my hometown. But I tell you something, that's a good question, because we kids stayed in a kid's place. You didn't go running up and like kids do now, calling grown people by their first name. We didn't do none of that. It was always Mr., excuse me, sir. Now kids come up to you and they act like they knew y'all a while.
Serena, I'm gonna get Serena and then Brandon in the back. Go ahead, Serena. Was it just girls who was in the stockade, or girls and boys?
Well, girls and boys was in the civil rights movement. Young girls and boys. I'm talking your age. But we were not housed together. We weren't incarcerated together. They separated us from the boys.
Let me get Brandon. Hold on. Brandon, speak up loud.
The Sockets, would they ever torture you?
Did you ever get tortured in the soccer?
In a sense, we were tortured because just to be away from your family,
It's torture.
sleeping on the cold floor with no blankets, cockroaches all over the place. Someone threw a rattlesnake in the bar, through the bar. He stayed in there with us all night. All we heard was the rattles shaking on his tail. We were tortured, very much so.
Nice and loud, Chloe.
When you went back to school, was there any white people in your class?
That's a great question.
That is a good question. The answer is no. Well, that was the laws that prevented colors and whites from coming together. Matter of fact, you wouldn't believe this. That was 100 years later after President Lincoln supposedly had liberated slavery. But 100 years later, we still was fighting for our freedom and for the rights.
I'm gonna go way in the back. Ronnie, did you give speeches?
Not as a child, no.
Go ahead, Lorelai. Ah, Kaylin. That was quick. Go ahead, Kaylin. Nice and loud. How many marches have you been involved with?
I would say at least a dozen, from the age of 10 to 12.
Maya, nice and loud. Did you ever meet Coretta Scott King?
No, I knew who she was. No, I never met her.
Let's get somebody over here. Kennedy, go ahead, Kennedy. Nice and loud.
Was there any other
Say it again, Kennedy.
in school? Did you have art or gym?
Did you have specials, enrichments, art, gym, music?
Oh, no. We didn't have any of that. That's one of the reasons why we had to stand up against segregation, because our schools only had all colored kids, as they would say, all colored teachers, and the town was separated by railroad tracks. On the south side of town, the whites live. On the north side, the coloreds live. And we could not go to the park, we couldn't go to the playground. We had no teaching tools. We couldn't go in the library. And our desk was made out of wood that two people would sit at a desk and they would shake every time one of us get up.
We're gonna do what, 2 more questions? And if you have more, you can write them down and give them to Mr. Henry. And then we're gonna make Mr. Henry get all the answers to these questions. We wanna show apples too, right? So we'll do 2 questions and then Miss Westbrook Griffin wants to show you something with the apple. So we're gonna do 2 more questions. I'm sorry, I see a lot of hands. In the back, I can't see who that is next to Cameron. Go ahead. Stand up. Whoever that is next to Cameron, I can't see you.
Did you ever find out who the person taking the pictures was?
Oh, that's a great question. Did you ever find out who was the person taking the pictures when you were in the Stockholm?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. Ben and I, matter of fact, he and I have met as an adult. And we did, and some of the girls that are grown, he was appointed to take those pictures through Southern Christian Leadership Conference office.
All right, last question before the apple. Go ahead, Dallas. The teachers at the school, did they have white skin or brown skin? I can answer that for you, Dallas. They were all, no, actually, yeah, they were all black teachers, correct? The teachers at your school, 'cause
Yeah,
it was
and
segregated.
they were wonderful
segregated.
teachers.
Yep, they were
They
segregated.
did not have,
All right, so to close it out, I need you just quiet for a few minutes. I know you have a lot of questions, and we will be here probably until tomorrow if we took all your questions. Wait. We're not ready. We're not being respectful. Thank you.
okay, I brought a little bit of demonstration. Young people, look Pay attention. These are, you guys all know what these are, right? Okay. These apples are, there's a Cortland apple, there's a Fuji, Granny Smith. This is Gala. They all apples. And this is a Snapdragon. This is Honey Crisp. And this is a Red Delicious. This is a Portland apple. And I don't know if you kids know what these apples are for, besides eating. Well, the reason I've set them here is because they are apples. You can eat them, but there are different textures to them. However, they're still apples. You still can eat them. But Gala apples is a snappy, crisp texture for desserts, fresh eating, and salads. The Fuji apples, you can just bite freshly and eat those for snacks. The Granny Smith has a very tart, sweet taste. Then we have the Red Delicious apple, which is very crispy. And you can use that for salad or just snacking. Same thing was excellent for the Gala apples. Now the reason I brought, and this is a pear, of course, the reason I brought these here, so you'll know that you parallel with these apples, like we are. They're different people, different sizes, different colors, but we all have goodness inside of us. And we're very creative because that's the way God made us. So there's no junk when it comes to these things here, because they're all edible. They're different shapes, colors, and sizes. Same thing with you. You're different shapes, colors, and sizes. And you're human. We all are. So you matter. And you're important. Nobody's fingerprints are the same. Yet you're human. Isn't that amazing? That out of all you kids, none of you have the same fingerprints or interests, but your desires are the same. You want to be fed rather than hungry. You want to be hot rather than cold. You want to be loved rather than unloved, because we're all the same. Somebody's hair may be a little kinky or straight. Someone may have blue eyes or brown eyes or green eyes or gray eyes. We're all the same. So this is really what I'm saying about the fruit here. They parallel who we are in terms of our differences, but yet we're all human. And all these apples are edible. They can be baked, snacked, dessert, sauces, but yet they're apples. If you choose not to make a dessert, you can still pick it up and eat it because it's edible. And that's the way we are. We're all in it together, and we all matter. Okay, so I did another thing. Okay, I brought a diversity kit.
It's a diversity kit that she's going to leave with the teachers.
And the teachers, y'all can have these kids to make their own. Some of them don't have the watches in them. There's only 2 of them with the watches. And these don't have watches, but they have the rest of the kit. Now, let me tell you what's in there real quick. The diversity kit is made up to show you the diversity of how we all are. There's a button. The button reminds you to button your lips and to keep you from saying hurtful things about others, including racist, sexist, homophobic remarks or jokes. There's a lifesaver in here to remind you that you can be a lifesaver to others by courageously standing up to negative statements that can erode an individual's self-esteem. The toothpick is to remind you to pick out the best qualities in everyone, regardless of race, gender, age, disability, etc. The mint in here is to remind you that you're worth a mint to your organization, your school, your family, your friends, etc. And the eraser is to remind you that mistakes are unavoidable and we need to erase our embarrassment by apologizing when a mistake is made. The marker is to remind you to make a mark as a leader, to have fun and try to make people you work or go to school with feel special. The watch is to remind you to make time to discover the value of individual differences, to embrace diversity and empower all individuals, that's all of you. And the last but not least, the shades, to remind you to discard the shades that blind and prevent you from changing your old views on racism, ageism, and other forms of discrimination. And that's why I made these kits up. Now, most of them don't have the watch in them, but I'm going to leave them here so your teachers can take what you want, whatever grade, and let your kids make their own. These don't have the watches. There's only 2 that have watches in it. I think this is one. This is the other one.
So we are very appreciative of you, Miss Westbrook Griffin. Can we give her another round of applause?